The year was 1873, and the Blackwood estate stood like a shadowed monument on the outskirts of Yorkshire, England. Its ivy-covered walls and crumbling turrets whispered of a grandeur long faded, a testament to a family that had once been the envy of the county. Now the estate was a hollow shell, its halls echoing with the ghosts of tragedy. Eleanor Blackwood, the last of her line, stood at the threshold of the grand library, her pale hands clutching a velvet box that hadn't been opened in decades. At 28, Eleanor was a fragile figure, her raven hair streaked with premature gray, her green eyes haunted by a past she couldn't escape. She had returned to the estate after her father's death, the final blow in a lineage cursed for generations. Inside the box lay a locket, a delicate piece of silver, its surface engraved with intricate roses, a single ruby at its center, glowing like a drop of blood. The locket had been passed down through the Blackwood women for over 200 years, a cherished heirloom that carried a dark secret. Eleanor's grandmother, Beatrice, had warned her never to open it, her voice trembling as she spoke of the madness that had claimed every woman who dared to wear it. But Eleanor had no choice. The whispers had started again, the same whispers that had driven her mother to throw herself from the estate's highest tower when Eleanor was just a child. She needed answers, even if they came at the cost of her sanity. The library was a cavern of dust and shadows, its towering shelves filled with leather-bound tomes that hadn't been touched in years. A single candelabrum flickered on the oak table, casting eerie shapes across the walls. Eleanor set the box down, her fingers trembling as she lifted the lid. The locket gleamed in the candlelight, its ruby pulsing with a faint, unnatural light. She hesitated, her grandmother's warning echoing in her mind. It sees you, Eleanor. It knows your fears. But the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to seep from the walls themselves, calling her name. With a shaky breath, she clasped the locket around her neck, the cold metal biting into her skin. The air in the library shifted, growing heavy with an unseen presence. Eleanor's vision blurred, and the room seemed to warp, the shelves twisting into grotesque shapes. A woman's voice, sharp and venomous, hissed in her ear. "You cannot escape us!" She stumbled back, her heart pounding, as the candelabram's flames flared, illuminating a figure at the far end of the room. It was her mother, Clara, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes black voids. "Why did you bring it back?" Clara's voice was a wail, her hands clawing at the air. Eleanor screamed, tearing the locket from her neck and hurling it to the floor. The vision vanished, but the whispers remained, now a low, menacing hum. Desperate for answers, Eleanor turned to the family journals, a collection of diaries kept by generations of Blackwood women. She found Beatrice's journal, its pages yellowed and brittle, the ink faded but legible. Beatrice wrote of the locket's origin in 1673, a gift from a mysterious woman named Marjorie, who had appeared at the estate during a brutal winter. Marjorie, a healer shunned by the village, had sought refuge with the Blackwoods, offering the locket as payment. But the locket was no ordinary trinket. Marjorie had cursed it, her bitterness at the world's cruelty woven into its silver. "Whoever wears this shall see the truth of their soul," she had said, her voice dripping with malice, "and it will drive them to ruin." Beatrice's entries grew frantic as she described the locket's effects. Her mother, Eleanor's great-great-grandmother, had worn it and descended into madness, claiming to see the dead. Beatrice herself had resisted its pull, locking it away. But Clara, Eleanor's mother, had not been so strong. Clara's final entry, written the night before her death, was a scrawled plea. "It shows me my failures, my shame. I cannot bear its gaze." Eleanor's hands shook as she read, the pieces of her family's curse falling into place. The locket didn't just haunt its wearer, it fed on their deepest fears, manifesting them as visions that eroded their sanity. Determined to break the curse, Eleanor sought out Father Thomas, the village priest, a man known for his knowledge of the occult. She found him in the small stone church at the edge of the village, its stained glass windows casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the pews. Father Thomas, an elderly man with a stern face and kind eyes, listened as Eleanor recounted her story, her voice breaking as she described her mother's death. He examined the locket, his fingers tracing the ruby, and his expression darkened. "This is no mere trinket," he said gravely. "It's a vessel for a malevolent force. Marjorie's spirit may still be bound to it." Father Thomas proposed a ritual to sever the locket's hold, but he warned Eleanor of the danger. "The spirit will fight to keep its grip," he said, his voice low. "You must be prepared to face your fears." Eleanor nodded, her resolve hardening. She couldn't let the locket claim her as it had her ancestors. They returned to the estate that evening, the sky a bruised purple as a storm brewed on the horizon. In the library, Father Thomas drew a circle of salt on the floor, placing the locket at its center. He lit candles at the 4 cardinal points, their flames casting a warm glow against the gathering darkness, and began to chant in Latin, his voice steady but strained. The air grew thick, the temperature plummeting as the candles flickered violently. Eleanor clutched a rosary Father Thomas had given her, her knuckles white. The whispers returned, louder now, a chorus of anguished voices that seemed to claw at her mind. The locket's ruby glowed brighter, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. A gust of wind tore through the room, extinguishing the candles, and Marjorie's spirit materialized, her form a twisted shadow with glowing eyes. "You cannot take what is mine," she hissed, her voice echoing with centuries of rage. Eleanor's fear surged, but she held her ground, her voice trembling as she shouted, "You've taken enough!" Father Thomas continued the chant, his voice rising over Marjorie's screams. The spirit lunged at Eleanor, her skeletal hands reaching for the locket, but the salt circle held, the barrier shimmering with a faint light. Eleanor's mind flooded with visions, her mother's broken body at the foot of the tower, her grandmother's tear-streaked face, her own reflection distorted into a screaming mask of terror. She fell to her knees, the rosary slipping from her fingers, her resolve wavering. But Father Thomas's voice cut through the chaos, urging her to fight. "You are stronger than the curse," he said, his eyes blazing with determination. With a final, desperate effort, Eleanor grabbed the locket from the circle, her hands burning as if she'd touched fire. She smashed it against the oak table, the ruby shattering into fragments that scattered across the floor. Marjorie's scream filled the room, a sound of pure agony as her form disintegrated into a cloud of ash. The whispers ceased, the air growing still, and the candles reignited, their flames steady and warm. Eleanor collapsed, her breath ragged, tears streaming down her face. Father Thomas knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said softly. "The curse is broken." But as Eleanor gathered the locket's fragments, a single whisper lingered in her mind, faint but unmistakable. "I see you." She froze, her heart sinking. Had she truly broken the curse, or had she merely delayed its wrath? The estate felt lighter, the oppressive weight lifted, but a shadow of doubt remained. She buried the fragments in the churchyard that night, under Father Thomas's watchful eye, hoping to bury the curse with them. Yet as she walked away, the wind carried a faint hum, a reminder that some legacies are never truly gone. Back at the estate, Eleanor sat in the library, the room now bathed in the soft light of dawn. She opened her grandmother's journal, adding her own entry. "The locket is gone, but its echoes remain. I pray I am the last to hear them." She closed the book, her hands steady for the first time in years, but her eyes lingered on the horizon, searching for a darkness that might still be waiting.